What's up, everybody? This is Sean with Sean Realty, and today we're finally going to answer the cursive question of buy versus rent. We're doing a 3-part video series. If you're watching on Instagram or on Facebook, we're going to break it up into tiny little segments per question. That way you're not watching like this 30-40 minute long video. But I've been noticing on all the other articles I've been reading to research this and all the YouTube videos I've been watching that it's very slanted one way or the other. It's obvious you should buy over rent, or it's obvious you should rent over buy. And that's just not the facts. The facts are it really does depend. So today we're going to break down each individual scenario and give you actual numbers. Who are we going to bring into this? Well, let's bring ourselves in a renter that is looking to buy herself. Today we got Tiffany Morgan. Hey, what's going on, Tiffany?
How are you?
Okay, so we're talking about buying versus renting, and I want to see why you in particular have not already bought. You know that Dallas has been doing so well over the last few years, and the Dallas rental market is getting so expensive. So why is it you keep on renting and not buying?
Well, you kind of said it. I feel like I keep hearing that prices are going up and up and up, and I think our generation is just really familiar with the bubble and it bursting, and I'm scared it's going to happen again. Do you think it is?
That's actually a really good question. I hear this every single time that I try to talk to someone about buying or renting. I hear this bubble idea. And so it's really important to know the difference between a bubble and a cyclical market. And so it's hard to say. Let me show you a graph right here, and then we're going to really break down what the difference between a bubble and a market is.
A real estate bubble can best be defined as an increased demand based on speculation. When this happens, many people buy based on the idea of a house purchase being an investment versus a home. There is such things as a market cycle that is historically shown to have 4 phases. After a dip, there is a recovery period, then expansion, a hypersupply, and lastly, a recession. In a recovery period, we're just getting over a downturn in the economy, and most people think buying a home is insane while unemployment rates are up. Then comes the expansion period where the economy, jobs, construction, and faith in the market start to grow. Most will start to jump in here, seeing the benefit of owning a home over renting. This increases the demand, and then we get speculators in the market that jump in just to ride the equity wave. These speculators then create a feeding frenzy. This period is considered the hypersupply period. At this point, the market has now stabilized, and the supply matches the amount of people buying. Yet the builders still have the massive inventory hitting the market. Now prices start to drop just to get rid of the extra inventory. The recession period is countered by low interest rate loans and investors buying at the bottom. Then this demand restarts the cycle to the recovery period. So how long does the cycle take? Experts say about 18 years is the average time. The last peak was 2007, so we're expected to keep rising till 2025 or so. Evidence that we're in phase 2 are that the interest rates are still very low, the mortgage costs still on average beat the cost of renting in Dallas, growing economy, job growth, the feds are being super strict about who they lend to, there's a limit to how fast and how much builders can build, and the recent tax cuts for real estate owners and investors are all signs to point to much more growth ahead.
Dallas didn't even really get affected by the last bubble. If you want to look at the trends, I'll show you a graph right here that really goes over all the homes that are sold, and you see there isn't that much of a dip.
This chart right here represents the last 10 years of the Dallas' housing market. The blue line represents how many homes that were sold, and the green line represents the months of inventory, or the amount of homes that were available to be sold. As you see, there wasn't any massive spike downwards like there was nationwide. There's a little bit of dip over in 2011 due to an oversupply of inventory at that same time. Once the supply lowered, then we saw the steady increase in home sales again back to where we are now, which is a very healthy market. How did this oversupply affect the market? Well, as you see here, prices dropped until 2011, and then ever since we saw the bottom at 2011, it's been a steady growth upwards.
I hope this puts your minds at ease whenever it comes to it being a bubble or a cycle. Do you kind of know the difference between the two now?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what other questions you got for me?
Okay, so maybe we're not in a bubble, but what if I want to move in a year? I don't want to be like tied down to this one spot.
No, that makes perfect sense, and really it does not make sense for a lot of people to buy. It's not 100% the time that you should buy over rent. So let's just do the math though.
Last year, Dallas County appreciated 10.5%. Instead of using this number, I'm going to pick one area in Dallas and one home in that area. That way we get more accurate numbers. I'm choosing to look at $300,000 homes in the Bishop Arts area that have 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Last month, this home was sold. We will use this for our example. It's a perfect starter home in a great area that's very close to the city. It also has many renovations but still has room for many more. After doing the calculations, I found that homes like this rose 3.04% in 2017 and 6.08% in 2016. For the example, let's use 4% appreciation. Let's say you bought a home for $300,000 and lived in it for a year by yourself. You would have to pay closing costs and down payment. Let's assume closing costs on this would be $4,000 and you put down 3% or $9,000. This would total $13,000. When you sell it, the numbers show that it will sell for $312,000. You would have gained $5,185 in debt paydown, leaving you with $285,815 on the loan. This means that you would have gained $26,185 in equity at closing. You must factor in the $13,000 you spent to buy it, the 6% or $18,720 it took for a real estate agent to sell it for you, the $1,500 for home insurance, and we're quickly seeing that renting is starting to look like a smarter decision. We are already over $33,220, leaving us $7,035 in the hole, and we haven't even talked about taxes, repairs, and mortgage costs.
Even when you sell your house, you can get $375,000 off as far as tax deductibles go. This is as a single filer. It's a new thing that just came out. We're not going to get into too many details about that right now because that gets in the weeds, but in part 2, we're going to go over your tax benefits of owning a house. So with that being said, do you got anything else for me?
What is the best way to get a down payment? Don't you need 20%?
Actually, no. I'm glad you brought that up. That happens a lot. Whenever I'm talking to people, people always ask about that. There's even loans that the Federal Housing Administration set up just for people like you.
One option is if you served in the military, you can use a VA loan, and that gives you 0% down. If not, there's the FHA program that puts 3.5% down, a conventional loan that gets 3% down, and if that's too much, there's even down payment assistance programs that will have your down payment paid for you.
Even if you have a hard time getting a down payment, then there's a lot of options for you to use. And you have to also factor in that there is closing costs to be considered. And in the home that's at $300,000, you're looking at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 closing costs. And I could even get the seller to pay for that for you. So that way it's much less money out of pocket. Now, if you're having a hard time coming up with the down payment, I've shown here there's 0% ways to get in. There's 3% down, 3.5% down. Even the lender can give you buyer assistance to get in there. If you can't get that money out of a 401k, borrowing it from friends and family, if you can't even get off of a GoFundMe campaign, I don't think that buying a house is really for you.
No.
What other things do you have that's preventing you from buying a house?
I don't know if my credit's good enough to buy a house.
So I get that a lot. When it comes to bad credit, it depends on what you consider bad credit. You get the best premium rates in the 720, 750 and above range, but even there are lenders out there that will take 580, 565 on certain loan products. That doesn't happen often, and your rate is much higher, but even at the rates right now, a higher rate right now is still better than the historical average. There was even one point in 1981 where rates went up to 18.5%. And so even if you get a loan at 5%, that's still freaking awesome. All right, thank you guys so much for watching part 1 of our YouTube series. We have multiple parts on this, and next we're going to be going over some of your favorite questions on why you don't buy a house versus rent. Stay tuned for that.